Theo, I want to get right into, some of the things you alluded to in your last answer, basically saying like, you're an international student originally. You're from Canada. You're not even from here. I know you got a giant family. It's well documented. Let's talk a little bit about your journey to Penn State and the things that it took for you to get to where you are today, because a lot of people may not have that insight.
Yeah, I mean, like, to not get super, super deep into it, it's definitely a journey for sure. We got 5 brothers, single mom, kind of grew up in poverty. It was kind of tough growing up, had to share a bed a lot of time. It was six boys in a little house, so you never had no privacy. It was days where I wish I was the only child. Like it was really tough growing up. And people be saying like, oh yeah, y'all probably fought over food. Like if you ain't at the table when the food came out, like sometimes you just didn't eat. It was tough growing up, and at the time, like, there's points in my childhood where I'm like, man, I hate this. Like, I wish I had a small family. But now being where I am now, like, I'm so blessed that I went through what I went through, because I wouldn't be like the man I am now, the player I am now, if I didn't, go through some of those trials. But I was living in a town called Cambridge, Ontario when we first kind of left my dad in that situation. And that's when my mom went back to school. She was doing school while taking us to football practice and making sure we're all going to school and getting to where we needed to go on time. And like, if you think about what it takes to do that for not just one kid, but like 6 kids, like we all was doing something, whether it's swimming, football, soccer, like we was all doing something. She always made sure either if she was driving us, someone had a ride, she was like reading in the car when we was at practice, howling her books, and just relentless worker. And that's kind of who I attest my work ethic to, is because she showed me that like there's no excuse to like if you want something, like there's nothing that can stop you other than yourself. Like there's no reason that like I could be here if it wasn't for like my mom's work ethic and God, like really, honestly.
Do you find yourself now like clinging to old habits that you had back then? Like, for example, like my godfather, how he grew up, he said, man, they were so broke when the ice cream man came and played the music, his dad told him the ice cream man played the music because he was out of ice cream. So every time they came, they were like, oh, man, he's out of ice cream, because they couldn't afford it. But he, like, when we go out to eat, man, he looks around, like, he'll finish all his food and then get, like, almost sick if people don't finish their food. You know what I mean? He'll start eating off other people's plates. Do you find yourself, like, clinging to some of them old habits?
Yeah, that's definitely a good way of putting it, because I definitely find myself thinking like that. And sometimes I got to realize, like, like, I don't got to lick the plate clean every time. But yeah, no, I definitely, like, there's some habits I've definitely cling on to, just like good and bad things, if I'm being honest. And it's kind of, when you get to where I am from where I was, like, you kind of just get in those habits and you think like that's what got me here.
Yeah.
Whether it's right or wrong, like you kind of keep doing it because that's what you've been doing. That's kind of how you got to where you were. So with some of the bad habits, like, like I'm like really hard on myself like a lot of time, and I feel like like being so hard on myself is like why I got to where I am now, and I gotta, like, I'm trying to tell myself, like, you don't have to be like so hard on yourself. Like you can be a little easier on yourself and still be successful. Like, but for so long I thought like I have to be like so brutal to myself in order to like keep going. And habits like that, I'm trying to break out of. But there's some other habits that are good, like saving money and treating myself like I don't got stuff, even though I'm in much better situation now financially than I was before. So yeah, no, I definitely find myself clinging to some old habits for sure.
But I think that I would say that's where you also get your leadership qualities from. I mean, I think the confidence, and you understand too, we talked about it last time on the podcast, but providing for your family, you kind of took on that responsibility, even though no one probably told you have to do this. Now understanding like, yo, I have an opportunity to provide for my family. You're very pronounced, like when you walk in a facility, like when you talk to us in the team meetings and everyone stops and pays attention. You think also during that time that built up your leadership qualities? Like, obviously, you're a humble cat. You're not going to be like, yeah, but at the same time, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like, since a young age, like people always kind of said like what you said, like when I walk into a room, like people kind of knows me or listen or whatever. And I never really like understood it and kind of neglected that aspect of me for some time. But I think football really brought that out of me because like that was something like I remember first snap I ever played in football, like it was just like a click in my head. Like I just like nothing ever felt so real to me than playing football. And I kind of knew like this is what I'm supposed to do. And then the leadership kind of just came out too because, I was making plays on the field, but I was also able to kind of rally guys along too. And as I grew older, I realized that like that leadership quality is kind of rare. Like there's not a lot of people that possess it naturally. So I think that that's something that I feel like I've had for a long time, and I've worked to kind of develop more. And I feel like that was kind of a dormant trait for some time because I think we can all agree there's nothing worse than someone that talks a talk but they're not walking the walk.
Yeah.
I think we can all name guys from teams in the past.
Yeah.
So I want to wait and make sure that I built up respect from the team before I kind of stepped into that bigger role. And I think that I've feel good about how I've been doing it so far, and that's something that like every day I try to be intentional with, like thinking what am I going to do to like take another step in my leadership, whether it's like saying something else, whether it's bringing someone else along, whether it's challenging somebody. I try and just be intentional with that every day.
I think, when you look at the adversity that you had to deal with as a young guy and where you are now, one thing that you can kind of gloss over if you're not paying attention is that at some point when it didn't make sense to have that self-belief that you could go from point A to point B, which is where you are now, a big Power 5 college tight end with NFL aspirations, all those different things, like you had to look in the mirror in those times of adversity and believe that. What do you attribute your ability to do that from a young age to? Is there a person? Is there an instance? Where did that come from?
Honestly, if I'm being honest, I never had a lot of confidence. Like I honestly didn't have a lot of confidence. Kind of like I said, like I was like my worst critic. Like I really I really beat up on myself. And there was times where like I gave up on myself. I didn't believe in myself. And a lot of people didn't believe in me. And I think there's two people that never gave up on me, even when I gave up on myself, and I want everybody to give up on me. And I kind of just was done with it all. My mom and God, like I gave my mom every reason to give up on me, and she never did. She never turned her back on me when teachers told her you gotta just kind of let him figure it out on his own. When counselors, when specialists said no, he's like you gotta just kind of let him be, and she said nah, I'm not doing that. I'm gonna keep going, and God, like I was a troubled kid that obviously had been through a lot, and I didn't have a lot of belief in myself, and I think it was just having people that truly never gave up on me and believed in me even when I didn't know why they should be believing in me. I think that's what kind of gave me the confidence to keep going and keep working. And then eventually when you keep pouring into somebody when they don't believe in themselves, they start to believe in themselves little and little at a time. And then I think eventually when I started, taking strides in football and gaining more confidence, I can do this. Like I can play at a high level. I can play in the States. I can accomplish my goals. Then I think it's just kind of started to build from there and blossom. But I definitely attribute that to my mom and God for sure.
And Jerry, being in his room, how have you seen his like leadership develop as you've been here?
Man, just me coming in from just a recruiting standpoint. Like, I remember the first time I seen Theo. Like, I always looked up to him. Like him and Brendan and Tyler. Like, I always looked up to them. So just seeing that, just him being a leader for our room, he like pushed us to get to where we want to go. And like even I feel like he's had a big impact on our room and on our team. Like I said, it's somebody I look up to. Like he'd have helped me through stuff. Like It have been times where I've been down, man. Like I talked to him, and you know, he just like he helped me get back to where I need to be. Like so, I really do appreciate him because he really helpful for me for real.
Man, there's just so many cats like that like you see that you would never know where they come from, their circumstances because of how they portray themselves and how they show themselves to people. But man, that's like, the reality of it is like the toughest guys like that. Yeah. I think all of it comes from those external factors, which is obvious. Like pressure builds a diamond, pressure builds a king. Yeah. But like, man, like y'all two, like just I feel like everyone here, like guys we bring on, wise beyond our years. Like his mindset and like your mindset is just way beyond like, and just like ran on about it. Our locker room, how different it is as we've been here. Man, you see guys' visions. Everything is intentional. Everything has a plan. And I don't think you see that when you go into other locker rooms in the country. That it's a genuine support system that we're building up with each other.
I feel like it all just come back down to your background too, like your upbringing, like parents, like his mom, my mom, your dad, your mom. Like it's just your background. Like if you raise a certain way, you're gonna carry that for the rest of your life. So I feel like that's really what it starts with for real.
Sometimes that's all it takes is one person that you look up to, you respect for whatever reason it may be, whether it's a mother and a father, whatever it may be. Sometimes that's all you need. Yeah. It's because as a kid, it's not always easy to believe in yourself. No. You're making mistakes. You got people telling you this, you that, and you don't know no better as a young dude. You let people speak into your lives that really have no business doing it. You know what I mean? So sometimes having that one or two people in your life is really big time. One thing I want to ask you about too, Theo, you've alluded to Pat Fryermuth a couple times, him being around when you were a young player as a freshman. And I think it's interesting to always ask, like what was the toughest hurdle when you got to Penn State as a player that you had to overcome when you first got in?
So definitely the big thing for me is probably 5 days on campus, I had surgery. So already being a kid from a different country, playing a totally different game. Like people sometimes forget, like Canadian football is different than American football. So I'm coming to a different country, playing a different game, and then I have surgery 5 days into being on campus. So that was definitely probably the toughest thing for me is like, and not only being in a different country, like being in college, like I'm not getting eased into it in summer. I'm thrown into a full course load in a spring. Yeah. So that was definitely probably one of my toughest semesters just because like I never was hurt until I had my shoulder surgery. Like that was the first time I've ever been hurt in my life. So just navigating how to be injured, how to kind of still navigate stuff, and then making sure I'm still taking care of my body, going to class, trying to learn a playbook for the first time. So that was like super, super challenging for me just because there's so many firsts that I was going through at that time. It was just, I felt like I was kind of just, my head was on a spiral all the time. But I think that COVID was good because it slowed everything down for me. Mm-hmm. And I was able to focus more on learning the playbook and kind of getting accustomed to things more. So then by the time we came back, it wasn't as much of a learning curve as it might have been if I was continuing through the spring. And then ultimately, I was at the point where even through the surgery, even through all the things I went through that first semester, I was able to still excel enough to be able to play my freshman year. But my freshman year definitely probably the most adversity I had since I've been here, and that says a lot.
And you even talk about that surgery sleep. We all know it, man. That's the worst sleep ever. Yeah. And you was getting it in the Martin Hall beds too.
In the Twin XL. In the Twin XL bed.
No, that's the worst sleep ever.
Man. Terrible.
Sleep is crazy.
Surgery sleep is crazy. You remember when quick side story here. Shout out Tyler Elsdon. You remember I had a tibia surgery my last season. Elsdon, we lived at the Yards. Elsdon had the room on the first floor, and I couldn't get up the steps. So Elsdon went out of town and was kind enough to let me sleep in his bed. Now you have surgery. They give you all kind of pills for the pain, so you're you're just not all the way there. So I had slept in Elsdon's bed because he told me, and I didn't realize it. But I had started bleeding through the wrap
so, on his bed,
all over in his bed. And I high out of my mind from the oxys they was giving me for the surgery. I had no clue. Elsden almost came upstairs. Shout out Doc for slowing him down because he was gonna wake me up out my sleep and fight me.
I had never seen him that mad before.
Yeah,
like,
nah.
I mean, I get it though. When you have your own den, you have your own room, and the hawk burrows himself and builds a hawk's nest in your room
Oh, here he goes,
with
man.
McDonald's DoorDash.
Oh, yeah, I was
and
DoorDashing
dried
McDonald's.
blood on
Crazy,
sheets.
yeah.
Yeah, that would drive a man to insanity as well.
It's understandable.
Yeah. I mean,
Certainly
you got it.
understandable.
You understood the point. You kept your distance.
I did. I avoided Elzer for like 4 days. I'm like, bro, if I see him with one leg, it's a problem.